Good morning, class.
Morning.
How's everybody doing today?
Very good.
Good.
You guys made it in okay? The rain was coming down pretty hard out there when I got here, so I don't know about for the rest of you. Okay, well let me go over the attendance real quick, make sure everyone's here. Okay, Alfred, I see you back there. You were trying to hide from me. Okay, so how was everyone's weekend? Good week?
Very good.
Good. Okay, so let's go over our agenda for today. Today we'll go and ask you guys if anyone has any questions from last week's quiz. And I hope you guys have your developmental topics today, you know, that's due. Then we'll have our lecture. Our lecture today will be over cognitive and physical development during the middle childhood. And then we'll turn in our studies and we'll have our little group discussion. Okay, you guys ready? Let's get started.
Okay.
So, middle childhood development. Does anybody know what these age ranges go to?
Like 6 to 10 or 6 or 11, something like that.
Yeah, good. From 6 to 12. And you know, different studies, different books, different range, but around that age group is what it is. Okay, so it's also called the latency period. And you know, it's a lot going on with kids during this time. It's so many different type of physical changes that are going on. You got to think about it. They go from an infant to a toddler to the preschooler. Now you have this kid that's growing up kind of looking like you a little bit. So it's like, wow, what's going on? I know I have kids. You guys know my kids are during this age group, so you'll hear a lot about them during this topic. But for physical development, I mean, it's a lot going on physically during this time frame. They're losing teeth. They're getting taller, they're growing teeth, they're getting attitudes. I mean, it's so much physical development going on, it's crazy. So some of the body changes that I see irregular are, you know, like I said, missing teeth, growing teeth. When you're in kindergarten or first grade, you know, you see the kids with the front teeth out. You know, that's a big step for them. They're like, oh wow, I'm losing teeth, I'm getting older, you know, I'm getting more mature, I like this. But on the average, boys are slightly bigger than girls, you know, from first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, till you get to about the fifth grade. And around ages 10 or 11, you see a growth spurt in the girls. These girls are starting to get taller. I know from just watching the kids that grew up with my son, you know, small community, so everybody kind of goes to the same schools. And some of the kids that were in his kindergarten class, I remember them being so little. And now I go to his fifth grade class and the girls are taller than me and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? You know, and girls develop totally different from boys. Some of the things that are going on with girls are they're developing breasts, they're developing hormones, well both ages of groups are developing hormones. Girls can even start menstruating during this time. Well with boys, you know, boys are starting to have those erections, those dreams at night. They're having a lot of sexual development that are going on in the middle childhood. So how do we control this, or how do we go about this? Well, a lot of the schools during the 5th, 6th grade, they have the sex talk. They send this letter home to the parents and say, hey, we're going to have this developmental talk about your child's changing development, what's going on with their body. Is it okay if your child participates? Sure, why not? You know, it kind of helps us as a parent take off some of the pressure on having that sex talk with your students. But still, from the developmental point, you should still go forward and talk more to your kid about actually things, you know, because sometimes they have questions that they're scared to ask in class or in front of a group. Like, I know with my son, they kind of told him about a menstrual period, and he was like, he didn't want to, you know, say something in front of the group of class, so he came home, he was running off the bus, Mommy, I'm like, what is it? What is a menstrual period? And why did they tell me not to laugh if I see a girl with a red spot on her behind? I was like, oh, wow. It's like, am I ready for that? But, you know, to help him with his development, I want him to be able to ask me anything, so I kind of explained to him and didn't go too far off in detail yet, but kind of went over some things that are happening. So what else do we have going on? The gross motor skills. Oh, man, I see this all the time. My son plays soccer and he's been on the same soccer team since he was 5. And just to watch the kids barely able to kick the ball, kicking the ball and falling down and not completing passes is just funny, it's hilarious. But as they get older, I'm noticing like, wow, it's coming along. So I'm noticing that their gross motor skills, they're able to connect the passes more. They're able to kick the ball, run faster, jump higher. It's just a lot going on with them, and it helps them, physically, mentally, because they're like, oh, I'm finally able to do this. So they're noticing that, hey, practice does make perfect or make you get better. And fine motor skills are also going on. When you're in elementary, preschool, they say, hey, draw a picture of your family. Most of the time you'll probably get this from a kindergartner, preschooler. Mom, Dad. So, it's like, whoa, but when they come home, you love this picture. Like, oh, I'm so proud of you. Oh, wow, you did a great job. But as they get older, they're able to draw better. And no, I'm not going to do a demonstration because I didn't get those skills. So they're able to draw more pictures. They're able to make the person look more real. They're able to add more details to the pictures and more details to the family members. Like maybe mom has a pointy nose or maybe dad has curly hair, and they're able to identify those things and point them out. So we also have language and communication. But why is there a spurt in development? What's really going on in our heads? Why is this happening? Well, this frontal lobe area up here, guys, this is very important for development. Very, very important. This thing, it's magical what it does. It controls a lot of things that we do. It's magical. The brain is magical, but the frontal, this part was wonderful. So there is a cerebral cortex. They have a growth spurt in the cerebral cortex during the ages of around 5 and 8. And that's important. You guys should remember that, because just think about when you're having children and you don't really want them to damage this area. And back to the kind of the gross motor skills with sports, my son, he wants to play football. And I won't let him because the concussions, I want this part of his brain to be developed as fully as possible. I don't want him to get hurt. And so, that's me. We have an argument every year when it's football tryout season or sign-ups. And I'm like, no, why? But he doesn't understand. But one day he'll thank me, hopefully. And so, in the prefrontal cortex, the synaptics, pruning, and myelination is occurring. And it's an increased rate during the middle childhood. It's slower in that area than other regions of the brain, but it's for a good reason. Sometimes it takes something slower because it's better, like cooking a roast. You cook it slow and it comes out tender and good. So now back to the language and communications. By the age of 7, they have a basic kind of grasp on some grammatical vocabulary, not too much, maybe about 3,000 to 5,000 words. So you got to think, oh wow, somebody preschool age, they only know 5,000 words. To me, that's still a lot. But just think, by the time they're 10, oh my gosh, their vocabulary has increased to over 40,000 words. 40,000 words? Wow. 10 years old and they know 40,000 words. That's remarkable. It's like, do I even know 40,000 words now? Probably, I guess. Who knows? But during this stage, children are able to express what they're thinking because they have all these words that they have learned. But they are still having difficulties dealing with emotional charged topics. So, if something is really serious going on with someone in this age group, they don't really know how to express themselves. They know that something is going wrong, but they don't know what it is. And that's why you kind of, I don't know if it's still going on, but you always hear people saying, use your words, instead of not acting out. Because a lot of times, maybe from a lack of attention or just other issues that are going on with them developmentally, they don't know how to use these words and they act out in other ways, maybe, seeking attention in school or being disobedient to their parents or other people, authority figures around them. So is there any questions over attachment, physical development, or any kind of gross motor skills?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so now, middle childhood development, it's a big transition period. You gotta think about it. These kids in this age group are going from preschool to elementary school. When they get to elementary school, it's not the same. It's no more being a baby. It's time to grow up. You know, in preschool you have people, maybe 5 or 6 kids in the class, and the students are being babied, they're being helped, it's one-on-one all the time, like this is A, this is B, and this type of development, you know, it kind of causes attachment from home because it's still, you know, you're bonding, you have somebody that you can connect with, it's right there, you have that loving care. But when they get to elementary school, kindergarten, oh, it's a whole new world for these kids, and sometimes they have problems adjusting properly to this environment. Because there's no longer, I'm holding your hand until you learn this assignment. Hey, we got to count to 100 by the end of the year because I got to meet my goals. So you, as a student, need to be able to count to 100. And I got 25 kids in here to get to count to 100. So I don't really have time as a teacher to come and help you reach this stage. So sometimes kids get left behind, but you know, the government and all everything, they're trying to make sure no kid is left behind. But sometimes everybody just doesn't make it. So, you know, as a parent, you have to help with your child's development. You have to prepare them for this transition in life. And studies show that transitions from one school to the next school can really be bad on kids, especially from elementary school to middle school. But from the from preschool to elementary, this can also have a negative effect on the kid because they're not getting that same care. You know, they may seek out for attention that they were getting in preschool that they're not getting in kindergarten. But studies also show that putting your kid in preschool is very good for their development. They need to be in a school because students that start off good normally tend to end good, do good later on. Back to my children. My son, he went to a daycare. They didn't really teach. It was more like the babysitting, you know, we'll clap our hands, sing some songs, have lunch. Basically, that was it. But my daughter, I was like, yeah, I'm going to put you in an early childhood program. And she went to an early childhood program, and it was wonderful. I mean, my daughter, at the age of 5, she was reading, well, really 4, she was reading books, first grade level. Her developmental skills was better. She was able to have social relationships with her friends and peers, and she was able to, you know, not be so scared of a new environment. And so my son went to kindergarten. It was kind of brand new for him. He was still kind of acting out. He really didn't have the self-regulation to calm down, to know what to expect. He was just kind of all over the place. So they're able to get better coping skills during this stage. And with the better coping skills, they're able to deal with stressful situations better. You know, stress is something that can harm your development. Any kind of stress, you don't really need a lot of stress. Some stress is good, a lot, maybe not. When I told you all this is going on in the prefrontal cortex. So friends begin to come into play during this time for kids. They allow emotional support, and it shows the kid that there is some security. And you know, they're learning like, okay, well, I can get attachment from this person or this person, and I don't really have to consider running home to my mom to feel, or my dad to feel secure and safe. But that doesn't mean that your child at that age doesn't want to be bothered with you. Of course not. They have to have somebody to put them to bed. So the book talks about a case study, the Minnesota longitude study. It kind of goes over a parent dealing with the lady. She had to go to work. She got a new job. She had to work 11 hours. You guys read it. It was in that chapter for your assigned reading. So you kind of know what I'm talking about. But when her daughter, her daughter started lashing out, acting out, so the parent knew that she needed to do something about this, what was going on. So she took her to counseling, and she figured out that, hey, we got some attachment issues going on. Your daughter is mad because you keep her in daycare all day and she's not having time to spend with you. So through the counseling, they were able to work that out. So do we guys have any questions over the transition period? Great.
Professor Kemp, I had a question about myelination. I don't remember what that is.
Myelination, okay, Teresa, I'm glad you asked. Myelination allows a nerve impulses to move quickly. It's it's the myelin sheath, and it's like a coating. So it's got our little things coming out here, and this is like a myelin sheath, and it coats around it,
Okay.
and it's like a protection, and it helps, it makes the nerves move faster throughout your developmental process and everything. Okay, so we have, let's talk about some cognitive development. And, sorry about that. And we got the maturing of the prefrontal cortex, like I said, around 6 and 7, it's a lot of stuff going on, and a cognitive shift begins. And it's a shift towards decentralized perspective taking, which means that the kid is realizing that, hey, other people don't always think the same way I think. They think kind of differently. Once they kind of reach that point in life, they're like, oh, okay. So if everybody doesn't think the same way I think, I need to take a step back and kind of look and say, hey, what's going on? So this allows for self-regulation, and it helps with students to better calm themselves, better regulate situations, better to coping strategies, better to deal with cognitive situations and, stressful situations better. So there's been a lot of studies about bilingual children, putting them through school early or having them learn to different languages. Well, it's good for them if they learn a different language at an early age because they're able to remember it, develop it, and keep it going. But what about the kid that's from South America and their family moves them here? That's a hard situation for them because not only are they learning their own cultures at home, when they come to school, it's a totally different environment. Everybody is speaking a different language and it's spoken at home. The culture is different, people move different, they say things differently. It's a big adjustment for the kid. And when the kid goes home, most of the time, they're still sitting in their home and they're still with their same culture. They don't really take the American culture in their house. So the kid is struggling to know if I'm American and what's going on, where am I supposed to be? So that can be stress, but teaching them a second language, it's very good during this stage, and I recommend it for everyone and kids with younger. Teach them a second language, it'll help. So we'll talk about John Piaget. He has a lot to deal with the middle childhood, and he did an experiment, mass and volume. Anyone familiar with the experiment?
No.
Okay, so I'll just kind of briefly go over this experiment and show you. We'll start off first in the pre-operational stage.
Can you look at these two glasses? Do you think that they have the same amount of juice? Do you think they have the same? Okay. Now we're going to pour this juice into this glass.
So this is an early childhood kid. She's about 5, 6 years old.
Now, do you think that this glass has more juice, this glass has more juice, or do you think that they have the same amount?
That one has more.
This one has more, and why do you think that this one has more?
Because it's taller.
Oh, I just thought that was so funny. Because she knows that they're the same in the cups. She knows that the two cups are the same, but when they pull them in the taller cup, she's like, oh wow, that has more. It has more now. So let's take a perspective of someone in the middle childhood stage.
So first we're going to look at these two cups right here. Do you think there's the same amount of juice in this glass as there is in that glass? They're even? Okay. So we're going to take the juice from this glass and pour it into this one right here. So do you think that there's more juice in this glass, more juice in this glass, or do you think that they have the same amount?
Same amount.
Okay, why do you think that they have the same amount?
Just because this is skinny doesn't mean it's not the same amount. It has the same amount of juice in it, but this one is just wider and this one's skinnier, but they have the same amount of juice in it.
So, as you can see with that brief demonstration, that the students were able to, you know, at the middle childhood, their reversibility, concrete reversibility was able to, hey, something's not right here, you know. So memory also improves during this developmental stage. Okay. It's about time for class to be over, so we're gonna wrap things up a little bit. Don't forget that we have our quiz next week on middle childhood physical and cognitive development. And not next week, I'm sorry, Thursday. Today's Tuesday, sorry. And so we'll go over that. I need everyone to turn in their empirical studies over early childhood. You can just pass it to the end and I'll collect them. And I want us to talk briefly about social and emotional, talk briefly how does the cognitive process increase self-regulation during the middle childhood? To help us get started, on my way to school, my mom kept my daughter, and she said something, my daughter's 6, she said something that's really like, oh, Nana, I can't believe you did this. I wanted pancakes for breakfast, where, my mother was like, well, that was rude. You just came out of the blue with that. And then my son kind of looked at her like, you shouldn't have said that. And, he was able to know from his self-regulation that I better not talk to Nana that way. I better ask her in a more positive way, hey, Nana, can we stop at McDonald's for pancakes? And don't be kind of rude. So what do you guys think about it?